All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I am Jay Croucher, joined by Drew Dinsick from a cabin type of location in Savannah, Georgia. It's good to see you, Drew. Good to see you with a bit of a different backdrop. Today, we're going to talk Week 17 of the NFL. We're going to break down Dolphins-Patriots, Saints-Eagles, two games with uncertainty regarding the quarterbacks. Then we'll talk about the blockbuster NFC South potential decider between Tom Brady and Sam Darnold. Let's start, though, Drew, with Dolphins-Pats. This line has moved all over the place post Tua Tagovailoa going into the concussion protocol. Looked like he was probably concussed on that second quarter play, after which his play deteriorated. So from our perspective, I don't want to see Tua play on Sunday. Hopefully he doesn't play. And I think the market now is expecting that he won't. The line's gone from Dolphins plus 1.5 to Pats minus 2.5, with Teddy Bridgewater likely the quarterback. What do you think of this game?
Dolphins or pass? This is a tough one. I was very inclined to get involved with the Dolphins this week after what happened last week. I thought that to a degree, some of the ancillary play besides Tua's specific mistakes in the second half was very, very positive for the Dolphins. I think their pass rush is nasty. Matches up really well against everybody. The Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle at full strength is a matchup nightmare for every team, particularly a team that that has some questions in their coverage unit, and so I was hopeful to get Miami in a bounce back spot here, but now with the the change at quarterback and what we've seen from Teddy Bridgewater this season, which hasn't been special, I think this is probably a one to stay clear of. Miami obviously is playing for a lot more than New England, I feel like, at this point. The Patriots, you don't really see teams get up a lot from that sort of a loss where they clearly getting outplayed by the Bengals. They come back in pretty heroic fashion in the second half of that game. They have a chance to go ahead with the touchdown late, and Stevenson fumbles in nonsensical fashion in a way that completely shoots their hopes for winning that game, going to the playoffs. And it's you usually see teams like that come out a little flat next time out, because it's just like, well, what are we playing for at this point? Miami, on the other hand, needs a win more than any other team in the NFL. They've now lost 4 in a row, after just an incredibly impressive start to the season. Last week at home, people thought, hey, they're back finally after a 3-game road trip. They're gonna have the home crowd behind them. This is the time to buy stock in the Dolphins. I think that in general there was still a little bit of a shadow of fatigue from all the travel the previous 3 weeks, and maybe that's shaken now. But the Miami defense is the unit that I'm most interested in seeing perform here, because I think they can absolutely win their 1v1s versus the offensive line for the Patriots. They can wreak havoc, and I think this is probably looking at an under, or looking at a Dolphins, or skipping the game entirely. Where are you on this one?
Yeah, I think these are two very weird teams to assess, as opposed to, I don't know, I feel like I got a pretty good read on the Cowboys or whatever, but the Patriots, their defense, I'm not sure how much of the numbers. I mean, I'm pretty sure the numbers are very skewed by the fact that they had 3 games against Sam Ehlinger and Zach Wilson combined. And when they've gone up against better offenses, I mean, they got a couple of picks against Burrow, random plays. But I just think back to how bad that defense looked against Minnesota on Thanksgiving, for instance. And I don't think that they're necessarily as good as their season-long numbers. And now you get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then on the other side, the Patriots offense just continues to just look like a mess. I know that some of Mac Jones's PFF grades and stuff don't look that bad in recent weeks, but he's looked like a mess all season outside of that Minnesota game, where he looked like the guy that he was last year and even better, but against a really poor Minnesota pass defense. So I think really the handicap for this game comes down to whether you think that the difference between Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater is enough to swing the line from plus 1.5 to minus 2.5, which is a 4-point swing, but going through 0 and not touching 3 isn't that big of a swing, really. But at the same time, I don't think the difference between Tua, at least the Tua that we've seen for the past month, and Teddy Bridgewater is that significant when you think of the way that this offense is constructed, where they have, the genius of Mike McDaniel, which I think is legitimate, and obviously the speed and talent of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle as well, who was banged up for a couple of weeks, and now he's just Jalen Waddle again. He's perfectly. Yeah. Tyreek Hill was banged up as well. He's just totally fine. So I think the Dolphins are a bet at +2.5. You don't feel great about it just because of the slide that team is on, but I do think there are mitigating circumstances around that, mainly just how bad Tua has been, and he's probably not going to play. And I think that Teddy Bridgewater is more than capable of putting up points on a Patriots defense that is probably more vulnerable than their season-long rankings would imply. So I would bet the Dolphins +2.5, and I have. Let's go to Saints Eagles. Eagles are 7-point favorites. This line is starting to move a little. Ooh. The reporting, there's not really been anything concrete, but Dan Graziano from ESPN, who I shared some buffalo wings with about a month ago, dinner in Buffalo. So, he's got, generally when he's reporting stuff, it's pretty accurate, and he is saying that he thinks it's unlikely that Jalen Hurts will play against the Saints. And I think the smoking gun of sorts here is that there still seems some uncertainty as to whether Hurts is going to even play in the first week of the playoffs. It's not. And so I just think with that swirling around, when there's generally that type of discussion, or what's his effectiveness going to be in the first week of the playoffs, then he's probably not going to play week 17 home to the Saints, I would have thought, particularly when there is a pretty decent chance that if they lose this game, then they can still clinch the 1 seed in week 18 against the Giants. And it's very likely, given the Giants -250 on the money line against the Colts now, that the Giants are going to have nothing to play for in that week 18 game. So if you can get Hurts an extra week of rest, and then worst case scenario, you need to beat the Giants in Philadelphia in week 18 when there's a 65-70% chance it's going to be the Giants backups, then I don't know. I just don't think Hurts is going to play this week, which makes me think that the Saints, who I think have been underrated for a while now, are a bet at +7. But what do you think?
Yeah, we agree. I took the 7 this morning, and some of it was based on the breakdown you have about Hurts. I agree with that 100%. I will be very, very, very surprised if Hurts plays. But at the same time, does it really matter? Is the key to the Eagles winning and covering his singular, impact on the game? I would actually look much more to the injuries that matter are in the secondary for the Eagles and at the wide receiver position for New Orleans. If Olave goes, he has a very nice matchup all of a sudden. There's really only one healthy guy that you have respect for in this Eagles secondary, and that's James Bradbury. Otherwise, this is a bunch of guys that have been getting beaten, and can be exploited if you come in with a good game plan, which the Saints have been doing lately. So I think that this is going to be a competitive game. Obviously, for future considerations and all of the different various ways I bet the Eagles this year, I want them to clinch the 1 seed. But I'm very prepared for a surprise here. New Orleans is, they're not taking this part of the season lightly. I know they're not playing for anything realistically, but at the same time, this team went all in this season. They trade their first pick next year to the Eagles, and everybody is playing for the now. They're not trying to build for the future here. So Saints are going to come out and give you an honest effort in this one. They're the healthier team as far as I look at these injury reports. So I think the Saints are live, and I took the 7 points. Now the drop off from Hurts to Minshew, maybe I'm minimizing it. I thought Minshew was perfectly capable at running what is an extremely effective and worthwhile offensive scheme. The Philadelphia Eagles have one of the better offensive minds in the NFL going for them, and on staff there, on Sirius staff, and Shane Steichen. And I think just what they're able to do with the pieces that they have and the weapons that they are working with, it's going to be it's going to look like Eagles offense, even with Minshew under center. So I'm not 100% sure that there's a meaningful downgrade in terms of what that offense's output's going to come up with. It's, for me at least, much more what's going on the other side of the football. Is the Eagles defense going to be exploitable here? And if it is, then this is sort of, becomes team with the ball last wins kind of deal. And at that point, I definitely want a touchdown in my pocket.
Yeah, I think this is the game that's most shaped by injury uncertainty this week. And it's not just Hurts to Minshew. And like the market thought the difference between Hurts and Minshew last week was going from Cowboys -1.5 to Cowboys, I think, close -3.5. So went through 3. So that's fairly significant. At the same time, it's not like a Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love drop off against the Chiefs last year or anything. So I think Minshew looked fine against Dallas. I didn't think he looked amazing by any means. He did leave some plays on the field. At the same time, they were one play away from putting up 41 on the Cowboys. I do think at this point, with the injuries that the Cowboys are dealing with Parsons and Diggs being sick all last week, I do think the Saints defense is probably going to be a tougher proposition for Minshew than what the Cowboys served up last week in Jerry's world. So look, with the Saints, with the injuries, like if it's Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo at corner against Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, like you don't like that. It seems like Marshall and Lattimore, though, is getting closer and closer. And with the season, there's still being something at stake. Maybe this is the week that he finally goes. They need Chris Olave to play in this game, because outside of that, I mean, Rashid Shaheed, that's fine. He's solid, but I don't think there's going to be enough for them to be able to keep pace with the Eagles if Olave is out. And then with the Eagles, Avonte Maddox is out. Lane Johnson is out. Gardner Johnson out. Like, they're dealing with some injuries across the board just outside of Jalen Hurts. So you never know when they're going to reach critical mass at that point. And you said that there's one guy in the secondary who scares you, and James Bradbury, and that's because Darius Slay got lit up against the Cowboys, and he's not been the guy he was when he was shutting down Justin Jefferson in week 3. So, yeah, a lot of uncertainty in this game. I know that a lot of our friends and us are holding Nick Sirianni tickets. I've since abandoned that boat for Kyle Shanahan. But I do think that if you are holding a Nick Sirianni Coach of the Year ticket, like, doesn't really matter. Like, bet Saints +7 anyway, because it's a good bet. But certainly, if you want to guarantee something out of your position on Sirianni, I think +7 Saints is the play.
One other thought here. There are some aspects to what the best version of the Saints offense looks like that is kind of Philadelphia light, right? Like Taysom Hill kind of getting the getting the ball and doing his weird Taysom Hill thing. That probably will work against this defense. And so you nailed it. Keep a very close eye on the Olave news. I really do not want to be relying on Kirk Merritt. I guess he's next man up if Olave's not going to play. So that's kind of that's my read on this one. But I think Saints +7 is a decent, it's a decent shot to try to shoot for the middle with all the other Eagles futures I have in pocket.
Yep, absolutely. All right, before we get into blockbuster Panthers at Bucs, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen during bowl season and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Steelers and Ravens in our Sunday Night 7 contest. The line in Steelers and Ravens right now on PointsBet is sitting at -3. We've got the same line in Panthers at Bucs, and the total is 40. Now, I think the look ahead here was Bucs -7.5, and then straight after the Sunday night catastrophe of Bucs Cardinals, the line I think went to Bucs -5.5, and then by the morning it was 3.5, and now it's into 3, and I think there's still Panthers money coming in. So the market is still saying that the Bucs are the better team. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't think so. Not as currently rostered and not as currently performing. This Tampa Bay offense it's broken from a scheme level. And you know who knows that, Jay? Tom Brady. And his attitude and his kind of just ethos on the sidelines when they're in sort of their base offense is just, it's not you're not sharpening your team here for a playoff run. You're literally just running out the clock so you can start, move on to a new team next year. Like, that is the entire vibe I get watching Tampa Bay Bucs offense. And, the defense has kept them in a lot of these games recently because they're a little bit healthier. But they're now drawing a tough test with Carolina. And if you haven't been if you haven't been watching Carolina football because you kind of laughing at their quarterback situation, laughing at their coaching change, and just assuming that this team is not, a meaningful competitor, then you're doing yourself a disservice because, yes, 2 weeks ago they had a stinker of a performance, but their wins against Seattle and the Lions were real. Like, those were teams that showed up and played their absolute hardest, and it was impressive to see. They're doing it in a physical way that wins football games this time of year. Right, it doesn't always have to be pretty with the high EPA per play quarterback. In today's NFL, like, there's lots of teams that are winning with ugly quarterback play, and the Panthers have been one of those teams. They're winning their battles in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They're getting outstanding play from Deontay Foreman. And yes, I realize that the irony is not lost on me that here we are at the end of 2022 and I'm singing the praises of a Ben McAdoo offense led by Sam Darnold. Like, these are not people that you want to trust your money with at all. Like, this is a very, very, very questionable, proposition here. But at the same time, this Tampa Bay offense has zero chemistry. They lose more pieces on their offensive line now. I think if you're looking at the current market and you're staring at the three, I think the threes go to 2.5. I think 2.5 is fair. And at this point, and if you've missed the 3.5 already, you're probably thinking, should we be backing money line? Should I be just taking Panthers to win the South at this point? Like, well, how do I try to capitalize on what is an opportunity here? And I think Panthers money line is the play, and then once they're up by double digits in the fourth quarter, you grab a little Tampa Bay money line live.
Yeah, I really want the Panthers to win this game too. Sitting on 40-1 division ticket, 20-1. I think you've got some of that as well.
It's a good bet.
I would be all in except for the fact that JC Horn is out, and I'm very concerned about the Panthers cornerback situation. Like, they just signed Josh Norman. That's not good. That's not good at all. Why are they signing Josh Norman? It's going to be CJ Henderson. It's going to be Keith Taylor, Dante Jackson. And I know that the Bucs offense is a catastrophe, but still Mike Evans is still Chris Godwin going up against these guys. And I'm very concerned on that front. I think the irony is that Sam Darnold, if the New York Jets just had this level of Sam Darnold, they'd be like 11-4. Like, it's unbelievable that Darnold, and look, it's easier the position that he's in when the Panthers are running to the comical extent that they are. But I mean, they're running well, they're running efficiently. I'm not sure what happened to the Detroit run defense, which all of a sudden became like an elite unit going into that Panthers game, and then just got completely destroyed. And the Panthers offense, since Darnold got in, has been excellent. So I don't really know what to make of this team. I think that, they're playing better on both sides of the ball than Tampa have been, but JC Horn certainly scares me. I would skew Panthers +3. I'm not getting involved though, just given my position on the division. And I'm also concerned that, should they win this game, then New Orleans in week 18 is no layup at all.
No,
so,
that's true.
But the Bucs are rightfully favored for the division. But I would still skew Panthers +3. All right, before we get into Jets Seahawks, a reminder to download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, Jets -2.5 at the stumbling Seattle Seahawks. The total is 42.5. Now, just like Pat's Dolphins, exact same line movement here. It goes from Jets +1.5 to Jets -2.5 on the news that Mike White is cleared to play. They found a 17th doctor to get him over the line post all of the Saturday, Sunday results breaking perfectly for the Jets. Where now, if they win out, I think by like 5:38, if they win out, they're like a 92% chance to make the playoffs in that range. So they absolutely have something at stake. So do the Seahawks. And I think firstly, do you agree with the movement from +1.5 to 2.5, going from Wilson or Strevler to White? And what do you make of this game overall?
I do agree with it. Now, Mike White holds on to the ball too long. He doesn't have a great offensive line in front of him. And the idea that one hit takes him back out of this game is real. So you kind of enter your handicap with the idea that you're not necessarily guaranteed to get a full game of Mike White, even starting. Now, that said, he is a huge upgrade over Zach Wilson-Streveler. And it's interesting to me that the Jets were bet aggressively the last 2 weeks into the close. Like, people are rating this team well. The idea that this market closes under 3, I don't see it. I think this is going to be the same story where late money pushes this to a 3. I think if you can take the Jets now, you do. And I think the way that they match up against the Seahawks is pretty fair. Seahawks are not playing good defense right now. Their coverage has eroded substantially. They have had no ability to get off the field in the end of games to give their offense a chance to come back the last handful of weeks. And, the Jets, that's the way they want to win football games. And so if the Jets can find a little bit of success early here and then lean on their defense and lean on their running game in the second half, then I think they win this game and they could win with margin potentially. So Geno Smith has been, his singular performance has backslid to the degree that going up against this Jets defense looks like a problem. Quinnen Williams being back is nice for the Jets, and their healthy secondary is going to find some takeaways in this one, I would guess. So this is Jets or pass for me. I agree with the line movement, and I think this probably closes 3.
Yeah, I agree that it's definitely trending and closing that direction. I do think there's a lot of health elements in this game, like there are for Eagles Saints, like there are for a lot of other games, I think, and it's largely on Seattle's side. It's not even with the Mike White stuff. To me, like Ryan Neal was out against the Chiefs. He probably is the best player on that Seattle defense. And if he's out, then it's guys like Teez Tabor playing safety, which is a disaster and just not viable. And then Tyler Lockett, we'll see if he can go as well. Like the guys that they're filling in for Lockett, like Treadwell, like it's not a good situation. That offense is built around DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett both being very good. So yeah, I just can't get involved with the Jets. With Mike White, the level he was playing at is clearly an upgrade on Zach Wilson, who was just not. Like Zach Wilson was just complete poison. Like it's just starting that guy at quarterback. Like he can't win with the level that he played in the second half against Detroit and for the entire game against Jacksonville. Like he's just a broken umbrella of a quarterback. Like it just can't work. But I do think I would hold back a little bit on the Mike White optimism just because like his performances were against a Chicago secondary, which is awful, a Minnesota pass defense, which is awful. And I don't think they were especially efficient in that game either. And then against Buffalo, they put up 12 points or whatever. So I'm not sure that Mike White is the savior. I think he's clearly an upgrade on Zach Wilson, but also just the potential that he gets knocked out with one hit. And then all of a sudden you're counting on Joe Flacco to cover a field goal against the still a flailing offense in Seattle, but an offense which I think still can be average if Tyler Lockett is out there. So, look, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on in this game. I would skew Jets -2.5 because I agree that I think it's going to close -3, and I think the Jets defense, which quietly wasn't amazing against Jacksonville, but
sure,
I do think with Quinnen Williams getting an extra extended week's rest, that is going to be significant. Do think this Jets defense is legitimate. I think it's a top 4 unit in the league against a Seattle offense that has fallen off. Geno Smith, the past 10 weeks of the season, has been like the 22nd best quarterback in the NFL after being close to the best quarterback the first 5 weeks. So I do think there will probably be some Jets takeaways in this game with the way that Geno's been throwing it up for grabs. Let's touch on a quick viewer question on 49ers Raiders before we wrap. 49ers might be a bit overrated. What do we think right now? On PointsBet, the line is sitting at Raiders +6. I agree. I think that's a little bit inflated. Like, it's still Brock Purdy. It's also the 49ers pass defense just quietly wasn't that great against the Commanders. The Commanders moved the ball the 49ers were giving up like 3rd and 15s for fun in that game. And as someone seriously invested in Kyle Shanahan, Coach of the Year, Brock Purdy-O'Roy, not enjoyed the performance from that 49ers pass defense outside of Nick Bosa. So yeah, I think, it's a sickening bet. It's sickening to hit submit on your bet slip on Raiders +6. But I do think that is a little bit rich. What do you think?
I agree. And I think actually, if you had a full strength Raiders defense here, I would be beating my drum that this is the biggest bet of the week. What are we doing here? How in the world is Brock Purdy laying 6 points on the road? I think with some of the injuries to that unit, this is a fun one to probably look for points. And I think the Raiders are going to get theirs. As good as the Niners defense is, I do think the Commanders exposed a couple of interesting ways to attack them. And I would expect that with a relatively healthy squad the Raiders are taking into this game, that they're going to be able to get into the mid to high 20s. So Raiders points over all look like decent bets to me.
Yep. I think the key thing with this game is, one, it's still Brock Purdy, to your point, and he's been good and he's been doing real stuff, but he's still pretty high variance, and to be a 6-point favorite on the road against a competent team is a bit much. Two, Renfro and Waller both graded pretty well by PFF against the Steelers. They look like they're back, and so if you have Renfro, Waller to go with Devontae Adams, to go with Josh Jacobs, I think that this Raiders offense, out of the conditions of Pittsburgh, should be pretty solid. The concern would be, like you said, like Denzel Perryman's done, Chandler Jones likely going to miss of what was already a horrific Raiders defense. So, it's not one you can bet with confidence, but I would have thought that this line should be more like +4.5. But
that's where I'm at.
Yep, perfect. All right, we're done. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll be back tomorrow.